Bonjour, étudiante français. This live class will help you review or reinforce reflexive verbs, which are a little bit tricky because they are not done in English like they are done in French. So it will review for you how to use them, what they are, how to use them, and we will go into a little bit in 2 more lessons your project that you will have to do writing about your daily routine. So here we go. Révision, a review. So really, what are reflexive verbs? Reflexive verbs are action words that refer to the same subject and object, meaning the person being talked about in the sentence is doing the action to himself, just like the cat in the picture. In English, it often appears with reflexive pronouns such as myself, himself, herself, or themselves. As an example, the cat bathed itself. So he's doing that to himself. Reflexive verbs work basically the same way in French as in English. However, it is used more widely in the former, in French, than we normally do in English. Well, that's why it's a little bit more difficult for us. So, what it is made up of. A reflexive verb consists of a reflexive pronoun and a verb. In dictionaries, these verbs appear as se plus the infinitive form. Some common examples are s'adresser. Notice they took off the E and put the apostrophe before the verb there because adresser starts with a vowel. So it's se or S apostrophe. So the next one is s'approcher, to approach. S'amuser, to enjoy oneself. S'appeler, to be called. You might remember that to say my name is, you say je m'appelle. That is a reflexive verb. In French, they say I call myself. So I would say je m'appelle Mrs. Houle. I call myself Mrs. Houle. So that's just how they say my name is. So in English, we don't use a reflexive verb for that. For they do, though, in French. So s'appeler is to be called. S'asseoir, to sit down. Se baigner, to swim. Se casser, la jambe ou le bras, to break one's leg or one's arm. Se coiffer, to fix one's hair. Se coucher, to go to bed. Se couper, to cut oneself. So if you just say couper, you mean you're cutting something. But if you cut yourself, you would say se couper. Se dépêcher, to hurry. Se déshabiller, to get undressed. S'énerver, to get annoyed. Se laver, to wash. Se brosser, les cheveux ou les dents, to brush one's hair or one's teeth. Now these are not all of the reflexive verbs, but this gives you some examples so that you will recognize a reflexive verb when it comes up. Common things about the different reflexive verbs. The group of verbs known as reflexive verbs share some distinct commonalities. These include the following. They all have something to do with body parts, hygiene, personal states, clothing, or location. Remember, you're doing something to yourself. The reflexive verbs are also often used to describe the common everyday things that you do to yourself, just like I said. Like that cat is brushing his teeth, so he's doing it to himself. So you would say, you would use the verb se brosser. Le chat se brosse les dents. The cat is brushing his teeth. Okay, and a review of how to form the reflexive verbs in the present tense. Step 1. Decide which reflexive pronoun is to be used based on the subject, which is also the object of the sentence. It could be any of the following. Me for first person, te for you, familiar or singular, se, if you're saying his, her, it, nous for we, vous for you, plural, and s again when you're saying they. Now notice that m becomes m apostrophe when followed by a vowel, and most words that begin with an H, and the French word e. Same thing happens to the t, which becomes t apostrophe, and s, which becomes s apostrophe. Nous, vous, and s can also be used to refer to two or more people and can mean to each other or to one another. Example, les trois filles se ressemblent. The three girls resemble each other. Okay? So here is your subject, les trois filles se ressemblent. They to resemble each other. You have to use se for they, and ressemble, you are conjugating the verb ressembler, which is a regular ER verb. Let's go on. How to form reflexive verbs continued. So step 2 is use this basic format. You use your subject pronoun plus the reflexive verb. This should all be reviewed from the last lesson. We're just going over it again. So for example, je me lève. I get up. Il s'habille. He is getting dressed. So in the little cartoon it says, mais je me lève à 7h moins 5 et puis je me lave. So do you understand that? I don't know why it says but. Mais means but. But je me lève, I get up, à 7h moins 5. You remember your time? When you're using the moins, you go to the next hour, which is 7h, and moins means minus 5. So 7h is 7 o'clock minus 5. So 7h moins 5 is 7 o'clock minus 5 minutes, which is 6:55. So je me lève à 7h moins 5, et puis, and then, je me lave. I wash myself. Or I wash. We would just say I wash or I wash up. Okay, next one. How to reform reflexive verbs continued. Step 3. You determine the endings to use. The present tense form and the endings to be used remain the same as a regular ER verb. So we have, for the je form, there's E ending, tu, es, il, elle, on, e, nous, ons, vous, ez, and il and elle, plural, ent. Note, these endings are for regular ER verbs. The endings will change accordingly with other types of verbs. Okay. Some reflexive verbs are regular ER verbs. Some are going to be IR verbs. Some are going to be RE verbs. Some are going to be irregular. You don't know until you look at the verb. They're all different. Okay, so some examples for regular ER verbs. Je me lave. I wash myself. Tu te laves. You wash yourself. So anyway, if you were going to say, I wash my hands, you would say, je me lave, and then you would add hands. Les mains. Je me lave les mains. I'm washing my hands. Okay. Let's go on. Il se lave. He washes himself. Nous nous lavons. We wash ourselves. And yes, because the subject pronoun and the reflexive pronoun are the same, they look repetitive. Same with vous. Vous vous lavez. You wash yourselves. Ils se lavent. They wash themselves. And yes, in French, they do understand and know what they're talking about, because even if you repeat your pronouns like nous, nous, and vous, vous, because they're used to it, just like we're used to speaking English. We understand. Now where to place the reflexive pronouns. For present tense uses, the reflexive pronoun always comes before the verb. Example, elle se couche tôt. She goes to bed early. Your reflexive pronoun here, se, goes before the verb, couche. Now, for negative commands, telling someone not to do something, the reflexive pronoun also comes before the verb. And you put the ne before your reflexive pronoun, and then you put your verb, and then you put your pas. So ne and pas go around the reflexive pronoun and the reflexive verb. So you are going to learn this in the next lesson, so this is just a little preview. Okay, so if you don't get it, don't worry, it's a preview and you will learn it in your next lesson. So, example, ne vous habillez pas. Do not get dressed. Okay, for positive commands, the reflexive pronoun comes after the verb. Example, lève-toi, get up. Like if your mother came into your bedroom telling you to get up for school. Lève-toi, get up. Okay, and a quick tip on that. When you use toi when telling someone to do something. And T apostrophe or t when you do not want him or her to do it. Remember, toi for positive, t or T apostrophe for negative. Example, ne te lève pas. So you would only hope your mother would come into your bedroom in the morning and say, ne te lève pas. Don't get up. Yeah, you don't want to go to school anyway today. So, in the positive, you use toi, and it goes after the verb. Lève-toi, get up. In the negative, you use te, and it goes before the verb. Ne te lève pas. Let's go on. We are going to talk now about your project. So, the first part of this live recording was a review of reflexive pronouns. Just on that last slide, I gave you a little preview of negative reflexive verbs, how to write those. You will be learning that in the next lesson, like I told you. After that next lesson on negative reflexive pronouns will be your project on votre routine quotidienne. So it will be your daily routine. Soon you will have a project in which you must describe your daily routine to a friend. You might want to take notes on this because there's a couple of things in this video that I'm going to tell you about the project that isn't actually in the project notes. So anyway, you can stop this video at any time and get a sheet of paper and write down a couple of notes. So there in that little cartoon is the reflexive pronoun se réveiller, to wake up. Les gens dans les films. People in movies, that's how they wake, se réveiller. Right? They wake up all happy, and then it shows moi, me. Yeah, that's exactly the truth. In films, they wake up all wonderful and happy and refreshed, and there's moi, not happy and refreshed. Okay, so here's where the notes come in. Some things to remember when writing in your project. 1. I am interested in seeing you practice what you have learned, not in seeing how well you can look up things you don't know yet and write about that instead. In short, use the vocab that you have learned, even if it means fudging a little on your daily routine. So, if you want to say something about your daily routine that you haven't learned yet, or you really don't know how to say, don't look it up. Write something that you know how to say. I'd rather you fudge a little bit on your daily routine and write something you know than looking something up and have it be wrong from a translator, because we know how those translators work and they are not wonderful. Okay. If you do something in your daily routine that you do not know how to say, don't use that example, like I just said. Number 2, even though the assignment does not state it, I would like you to use 5 to 6 reflexive verbs in your paragraph. This is what I want you to take notes on. In the past few lessons, you have learned many more than that. So choose at least 5 to 6. to use. Okay, it doesn't say that again in your project notes, but I want you to use 5 to 6. 3. Be as creative with your descriptions as you can, using the vocabulary you know. Refer to the paragraph in the project assignments to get ideas. Okay? So be creative within limits. Be creative with what you know how to say instead of trying to look up things. Okay, and that little man in the cartoon, se dépêcher. Can you guess what se dépêcher might mean? He is thinking about his plane, and he's running and sweating, so he is hurrying. Se dépêcher means to hurry. Okay, des questions? Avez-vous une question? If you are listening to this recording, you must call me to get credit. When you call me, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask you about what you saw and learned in this video, and I'm going to ask you if you need any help with reflexive verbs or with the upcoming project. So please give me a call, and I will talk to you later. Au revoir. Oops.